it's like really a culmination of what I did this year, okay? Just to give you a little background of who I am, where I came from, what I do, and I need somebody to give me like a signal if my head's blue. Because somebody told me to, as part of being a good presenter, you know how to prevent yourself from having a blue head and talking the entire time. And I still fail at times. So I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm a social entrepreneur, and I'm also a traditional entrepreneur. But my heart is really using my entrepreneurial spirit to improve the lives of others. And I focus on entrepreneurship across many different sectors. I like to get immersed in economic development, integrate entrepreneurship education programming within the incubation systems, the economic development. I am passionate about the field of education. I actually am the state director for the Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education, and I travel around the state having events that promote entrepreneurship, that connect entrepreneurs, similar to, well, I can't quite take that much credit, but similar to what Rick Anthony does here at Villanova, I tried to do throughout the state. That was actually how I had the opportunity and pleasure of meeting Dr. Caruso. Just to tell you a little more about my history, I'm biracial, just to let you know. My dad is Italian, or excuse me, my dad is African American, my mom's Italian, and I grew up in the county. I was the only black person of 2,800 within the school I went to, and I was the head of school spirit. And I used to be the one to get everyone all pumped up, like, hey, we're going to report to, at 6 a.m. Saturday, we're going to do 30 senior citizens' lawn. We're going to rake the entire leaves. We're going to bag it up, and it's going to be a blast. And they would always believe me, and then they would donate their time. So I was always in charge of designing social entrepreneurial ventures, and didn't quite even know that that was what my strength was. I graduated from Slippery Rock University, and I went to school to become a physical therapist. And I quickly learned that body parts and those sophisticated names I had to memorize were not as interesting as my mom thought it would be. I think my mom selected that major for me. But I ended up with a communications degree. I was a marginal student at best. I was able to get my school paid for because they found out after a wrestling injury that I had a birth defect within my neck that prevented me from, and that I should have never played athletics or participated in athletics at all. What it was your second vertebrae is like a thumb with a circle at the end, and it goes into your first vertebrae, okay? Mine, they found out, was bone, tissue, bone, and it could sliver at any point, and I could die basically on the spot. And I didn't let that really bug me, but it did throw me for a loop where I had to migrate off of athletics as a focus, and I didn't jump right into education as the first nature. I think I more went into enjoying myself and partying like I could die tomorrow type thing. But anyways, I was, after Slippery Rock, took me 5 years to graduate, communications degree. I was a couple credits short of a business minor. Accounting was a little difficult. Something interesting about me, I've only read 2 books in my entire life, and I was able to graduate college. And I'm not a big Cliff Notes guy, but I listen very well. And it wasn't because I'm not intelligent. I have a major reading problem, but anytime I would read something of interest, I would just get immersed in the subject in my mind, and I would never, 20 minutes later, I'm on paragraph 1. So it led to me learning in different ways. So graduated, moved back to my hometown of Erie, Pennsylvania, and a lot of my friends were getting arrested for selling drugs, acquaintances, and there was really no jobs. Most of the people that had any aptitude moved out of Erie, Pennsylvania. So I became a repo man. Oddly enough, there wasn't a ton of jobs, so little squirrely old me, taking people's stuff back in the middle of the night, hiding, and I'm kind of glorifying this because it was actually, I was one of those rental guys where we'd take people's furniture back and have to empty out their refrigerators and stuff like that, so it wasn't that glamorous. But during the meantime, my friends were all in the Washington, D.C. area, and they were becoming paper millionaires. Does everybody know what a paper millionaire is? Well, when you get a great stock play from joining a corporation for your contributions, you can negotiate how much stock, and what's, you basically, my friends jumped on got all these stock options when it was at a low price. I jumped on and it was at a high price, and it was literally not any value. But I moved down to that area. Oddly enough, all my white, not to get race related here, but all my fraternity brothers were able to access the technology space with no experience. Me, I actually moved down with a promise from a company that it was a startup company called Savis. They said, hey, move on down. It's going to be great. You got all the right moves. So I moved down there, and they actually went on a hiring freeze after I moved my family, my dog, significant other, and so I had to scramble to figure out how I was going to pay, a much higher rent. But fortunately, I just kept on persevering. I took a job with opening a retail mall out in Loudoun County, where I worked in the Hex men's clothing department. I never worked retail before, but I was able to accumulate a lot of discounted suits and made the best of it. But I ended up getting into that company and ended up becoming the #1 sales rep in the nation. And it was Unionet, and then became WorldCom. And during this period of time, I really focused on activity level. Really, what was my key to success? I just outwork everybody. Activity drives outcomes in most instances, and it's applicable across most instances. So I was able to succeed. I had a chip on my shoulder because it was a lot more difficult for me to get a job. But then in the process, I started to experience a multitude of different issues. These are health issues. I started getting whiplash that would almost bring me to my knees. And for about a year, they were trying to figure out what the heck was the matter with me. They were saying there was no problem. This 14 years ago. There's no problems with you. You're clearing good health. And I'm like, no, there's something the matter with you. If you drop to the ground almost with that, you guys know what whiplash is? That warm and wild feeling. Well, that was my first symptom. And then ultimately, when I wasn't able to use my hands, they finally believed something was the matter with me. But they were like, you've missed too much work. You're #1 in the country. We owe you about $50,000, but we're going to let you go. You're causing a cancer within the organization. Everybody's wondering where you're at. You come into this office and you're always in a great mood, and then you tell us you're sick. So I go, oh, so maybe I should act sick all the time. So that's just never been me. But they let me go, but it was the biggest blessing of my life, because I was fortunate enough to be able to bring over several clients of mine to Broadway Communications that had a PPO. And within the first 6 months, I was able to close a very large account, sell $10.2 million worth of stuff. And I was supposed to get a $232,000 commission check. And I was really at a high at this point, though, even though I was at a physical low. And then this organization allowed me to do a full audit of my health and applied the Western blot test. And they found out that I had 3rd stage Lyme disease. And at that point, my health just skyrocketed down, and I wasn't able to use my hands and walk for 19 months. My friend says I went from a pimp to a gimp because I lost about 40 pounds. I was on top of the world, so I thought. And then, I found out that I was slated to, in most people's eyes, pass away, right? They didn't know if it had spread to my heart, my lungs, and this and that. So I went through a series of different tests, and then I had to go on short-term disability. And I had an in-house nurse, and I had an IV in my arm for 6 months, catheter. And I didn't know if I was going to live or die, but I was very optimistic because I had that $232,000 check coming, so it wasn't that quite bad. And then September 11th happened. Boom. Everything changed in the communication space. And my client that had ordered that $10.2 million deal, they were slated to get installed with an OC3 circuit into a lab in Arkansas. And AT&T says, hold up, since September 11th, things have changed. We're going to require a $2 million deposit from your client in order to make this deal work. So imagine 30 days before turn-up, after they've been waiting for a year for install, I have to come bearing bad news. Hey, I know you're all geared up to start this contract and everything's going well, but we need an additional $2 million. And as you could assume, it was like, all right, you're not getting turned up in 30 days if you don't give $2 million, and that just created a legal battle. And that was kind of my segue into short-term disability. Not to jump out, I was like, oh, I'm not getting my money. I owed them money because they gave me a % up front. So that was a really tough time in my life. But the fortunate thing with short-term disability gave me the opportunity to really think about my life. And that's where the field of entrepreneurship came, or just being entrepreneurial. Having rheumatoid arthritis was kind of the outcome. Full-body rheumatoid arthritis is what I've had to live with and harness, and it was very difficult. Lyme disease also changed my neurological thought process, where it was very hard for me to gather myself around different things, and then when you think that your life could be ending, it's very hard to really get focused. But remaining positive, remaining persistent, remaining proactive is what I really did. So my parents say, Carmen, it's very, it's a sad sight seeing you struggle in the DC area trying to be a sales guy. Now that you have rheumatoid arthritis, you can't do the door-to-door stuff. Why don't you move back to Erie, Pennsylvania, and be around people that actually care about you, and will be a support system. So that's what I did, and that's when I created my company, Advance LLC, and we focused on doing the same type of work I did in Washington, D.C. I was fortunate enough, a friend of mine was building the casino in Erie, and I was able to serve as the conduit to several minority businesses getting contracts within the gaming environment equaling about $2.3 million, and I was able to help about 40 minorities get jobs at the casino, and I was able to get a $600,000 contract for myself. So I was like, great, things are going well, this is good stuff. But the fact of the matter is that was just where I realized that my problems only began as a business owner, because I invested 2 years in the process of getting the opportunity with the casino. The payout wasn't until after the install, so there was a problem with the install in the design of the overall casino, and they put the security. I provided voice, video, data, and security equipment for the casino, and I had another organization do the installation, and another organization hired them that was the overall GC. So there was a design failure with the architect where they put the equipment within the HVAC room, and the condensation formed within the equipment, and then it became a huge lawsuit between who designed what and what decided. Next thing you know, the money that I got from that organization was all of a sudden getting pulled back. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. What a way to go. So during that process, I started thinking, hey, why did this all occur? I didn't have my own installation team, right? I lived in Erie. I'm a Cisco engineer. I needed access to other engineers. I was pulling engineers from Buffalo, Cleveland to do deals in Erie. It was a sloppy market. I didn't have control of the end product, and that was ultimately what led to the lawsuit, because another team was responsible. So I'm going to fast forward here. During that process, I was going into the social service environment, Office of Vocation and Rehabilitation, trying to figure out what resources were out there for people with severe disabilities. And I had to actually get prosthetic shoes. I was walking around like Forrest Gump for a long time, like in size 13 shoes that were prosthetic, implants within New Balances. So, I mean, all BS aside, this year is the first time I've been in normal shoes in about 4 or 5 years. So, this is where it gets interesting. I moved to Erie, and I started to become more aware of what was taking place within the community. When I went into college, I wasn't really that concerned with things associated with disparities in health for those folks of color, housing, economics. I started really looking at the poverty issues with the town, and I became a steward of research. What has been tried, what has not been tried. I started traveling around the country and state, going to different communities that were able to reverse trends of poverty by creating living wage jobs. This is a big task. So I started doing a lot of studying, And then I did a lot of volunteerism. I said, you know, I'm an idealist. I'm going to change organizations from within. I believe that we can help this community. Erie's the 99th poorest city in the state. Okay? It's the 4th or 5th largest. It has one of the lowest crime rates in the city because all the people are in jail. It has some of the lowest education attainment levels for the entire community, and it's touted to be to have the poorest minorities in the nation per capita in terms of car ownership and home ownership. So the fact that I came and I realized that there was a community that could use someone with, you know, I really, after seeing, and I deduced this afterwards. I go, everybody goes, why do you focus on doing these social projects? Why? And it took me, you know, I don't know. You know, it's just where, you know, my mom was a social worker, my dad was a social worker. My mom actually helped people, you know, that were on welfare go to college and do things. And my dad worked as an employment assistance person where somebody would be structurally or functionally unemployed, and he would help them get retrained. So I had a social service background, so to speak, or, you know, somehow. I ultimately started researching, I started volunteering, and then I started getting frustrated because I tried to change organizations from within the bureaucracies. I volunteered to be on the board of the Economic Development Corporation. I volunteered to be on the board of the school district, right? I volunteered on the board. I volunteered on the board. Everybody says, we care, we want to do it, and what I found is nobody really, you know, in the social, in the nonprofit sector, things move very slow. I found out after years of banging my head against the wall that in order to get monies toward a program or project from a nonprofit, they usually have to put you in their strategic plan, you know, a year in advance, 2 years in advance. And that's a whole process in and of itself that most people don't know. So I decided to take I just decided with my core group of friends, and maybe I was suffering from a delusion of grandeur, but I said that I'm going to reverse the trends of poverty. I'm going to create a model within the community that's going to ultimately reverse the trends of the disparities in housing, health, economics. We're going to improve education attainment. We're going to attack creating an environment where more minorities are engaged in STEM career paths, STEM education. And I also said that we're going to build an entrepreneurial community amongst the minorities so that they can be the engine to hire the folks within the community instead of the casual or the traditional argument, hey, why are you not hiring, you know, why aren't you not meeting your diversity numbers? Why are you not that? I said, let's, you know, make some sense of this. So fast forward, I came up with this idea that I was going to create a revitalization strategy outside of the nonprofit and economic development sector. Everybody laughed at me, except for Dr. Crusoe. Like, Dr. Crusoe was the only guy, I said, I want to be transformational in Erie, Pennsylvania. This guy just won all these awards, and he sat down and listened to me. He's like, really? I go, yeah, I want to put this community on my shoulders. I really think that I have a unique blend of traits where I can open dialogue amongst decision makers that others probably couldn't do. And I really have a passion for it. And I realized that I was really operating in a mentality where I was building my own legacy because I had embraced my own death. So I was getting engaged in projects that would have some longevity where I can focus on outcomes that would be relevant. So to date, okay, this is where the excitement starts. We opened a charter school, our first charter school, because we wanted to be in control of the education outcomes of youth because they're making jail cell, publicly traded companies are building jail cells off literacy rates of third graders and focusing on urban communities as kind of benchmarking. And so we launched a school called Erie Rise Leadership Academy. We celebrated our first year. We had 250 students. We're growing to 500 students. We opened an incubator at the Booker T. Washington Center, and that's the home base of all the action. The great thing is my grandmother was a receptionist there, and that's where I would be brought during the summer and participate in the program. She worked there for 30 years. My great-grandmother worked there for 30 years. So of any building I had a connection to, it was this building. So that's why I was like a little bit more connected to this effort. So we opened a school down the street. We built out the community center with full Cisco equipment where we can do telepresence into every jail cell that's a state-run through a contract with Department of Justice. Why? Because we wanted to do virtual visitation for families so we could spot problems before they occurred. If a child, first time they saw their father, several years, there was a problem brewing, we would be able to be the first responders right there at the community center. So we have world-class technology, and I was able to install the Cisco equipment that I was trained on. And my company donated all the time. And I bootstrapped and ultimately covered the cost with one partner. So we recruited Mercyhurst University to operate out of the community center. First college to operate out of the hood, okay? We were able to offer an associate's program. We were able to cross-pollinate the staff. The folks that ran my incubator were the same people that ran the college. So the community center was the same employees as well. So we were able to substitute the community center's lack of funding by bringing in different revenue streams for them. And we self-educated all the folks over the last 6 years, that some actually had charges for selling drugs that were able to help get a master's degree now. But these folks, was our ragtag team that we basically helped them from within get the skills they needed so that we would have a world-class location, because everyone was telling us we couldn't do it. Go to look at the Small Business Development Center. They've got all these experts. I didn't buy into that because I went to them and they weren't able to help me. And then in order to help we ran our first class of businesses out of this incubator. We did $8.7 million, all minorities, last year. Broke all records for minority business within the community. That was a big thing. We opened a nonprofit. I've tried to do all this stuff within organizations, as I mentioned. Well, I decided we needed to have a capital agency, a capital source that had in their bylaws to do non-traditional lending to minorities. So there wasn't any around, so we created an institution, and I personally lobbied for money from the Pennsylvania Minority Business Development Authority. We got a couple $100,000, and last year, 2012, is we finally got the money out on the streets. Okay? So what I described to you, just in brief, is we started a school because we wanted to get control of the education outcome. We opened an incubator within a community center. We fully built out a technology center that was good enough for a university to build in. The university, we opened our first entrepreneurship class from a university last year. Then we opened the fund so we could actually provide funding to the businesses in non-traditional formats when they needed some credit flexibility. So the final frontier of this entire revitalization process is housing. I knew that we could spend as much money as we wanted in education programming, at community centers, at great charter schools, but if they're going back to the hood and their life's, their family life's chaotic, and people next to them have issues that could range from drugs to violence and whatever. Well, I knew after trying to run structured programming within the Housing Authority, as a contractor, as a volunteer, as a member, it just didn't work. People had competitive agendas at all time, and it was never transparent. So we actually are building 36 units of housing right now across from this incubator, down the street from the school, and we're providing internet connectivity to every unit, okay, where we're going to be focusing on education 24/7. And I'm going to do something that's never been done, whereas we're going to be using the housing environment to be the cornerstone of the education process, where I'm giving select the homes of the families that are in the charter school, they get to first dibs on the housing, okay? And the kids within the housing, we're going to have the internet, and we're going to actually assess every one of the students and adults that are willing to where they're at in their core competencies, their education attainment to date. Because school districts will not assess students in the manner to really identify where the students really are in their education attainment. In some instances, I don't want to speak in absolutes. But in a lot of urban environments, the goal is to pass the test, and everything's about the test. And it's really about masquerading some of the shortcomings with the education product. And in order to really move a socioeconomic class forward, we have to get our arms around the education process. So we're fully assessing everyone, designing customized remediation strategies where we prescribe different programs, Healthy by 6, on-site programming with digital assets. So we're going to be digitally assessing everyone, not your manual stuff, and we're going to use remediation technologies as well as personnel. So what I've described as a plan that has a lot of the basic elements required to move a community forward. We control the housing environment. Who's in there, right? Are they felons? Are they not, right? There are no longer any felons in this resident. And we have the students on a continuum, where they go to the community center for the after-school programming. They're at the regular traditional school and then at home. So we have them within a socioeconomic subset within the lowest census tract in the nation, the poorest census tract. So the greatest thing about this is that we did all this stuff without any government dollars except one particular, to prove the validity and the feasibility of the incubator, you have to go through measures, where you hire a consultant to do a feasibility study so that you can test whether the investment in such a effort is valid. Okay? Does anybody have any questions? I know I'm just throwing up all over you.
What is an incubator?
Great question. An incubator is it's a term used for when facilities, or whether in virtual communities, there are services poured into the acceleration of a business, the incubation of a business from startup to high growth. So traditionally, 1 to 3, 1 to 5 employee teams go into incubator space. It's a coexisting space where entrepreneurs can share ideas off one another and focus on growing their businesses. So usually it's about a probationary period of about 2 years and they kick you out. Okay? So we created a virtual incubator where most of the folks that are in my education model, they don't reside within the incubator. Okay? And right now, currently, my job at the foundation, as I mentioned, Dr. Crusoe 6 years ago said, all right, you're talking about being transformational, huh? Let me see how this works. And he being a transformational guy himself. So he started showing up at my events, flying in, talking to large groups, endorsing me, always talking about me when I wasn't around. And now I'm the vice president of his organization. He's a very highly successful entrepreneur. He has a venture capital organization that's also on the same location where I'm at, where we have about $600 million in assets. They do around $1 to $10 million investments. I have 50 entrepreneurs from across the state that I work with. Okay, and I'm scaling to 100. I have 2 MBAs from Harvard and Stanford that do 30 hours a week for me. And I'm a Slippery Rock grad, mind you, to help me launch and grow businesses. So now what I'd like to do is answer any other questions, and then I want to show you this is my year. This is content. This is like extreme stuff, okay? This is all the different venues that I supported, launched, or had something. Well, actually, they're all within my ventures and ventures that I support as one of my clients. So I would like you all to maybe pick the one you think's most interesting, or how about I'll pick one that I think is really. Ooh. Okay.
Before you do that, define an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And make the distinction between a commercially driven entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur.
Okay. All right. And I'm not going to give you all this French stuff and the origin of it. You're right. Where I'm going to go with this is how I like to put it. Entrepreneurs, they either create something new or they improve something. This is how I break it down to people. Commercially driven entrepreneurs, they either create something new or they improve upon something that's already in existence or find a new application of something. Okay? For example, one of the things that I like to do, I have rheumatoid arthritis. Sometimes it's debilitating. I live in Erie where a foot of snow will come down out of nowhere, right? And you know, sometimes you're trying to get into your car, there's an ice thing over it, you get discouraged, you don't want to scratch your paint, you know. So I was, I had this idea. I was like, what am I going to do? I can't get into my car, you know, I'm going to be late. And then I thought, oh my goodness, I have a nice hanger, one of those wood hangers with a gold top on it. So I was like, oh, okay, well, let me chip a little piece of the ice out, and it fit right in there perfectly, and it was perfect, and I could pull right without scratching the paint. So I instantly thought about, this is innovation in the works. Like, you know, a student that was broke could literally go door to door and help people when they're frozen over to make $5, $10 down the street. But also, from a product improving, I thought about, should we, you know, invest in the fold-up hangers, you know, and then maybe put some handle or some gripping stuff on them. But the thing is out of my own need, you know, I took something with the traditional application and thought about a new use of it. So I didn't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, invest a lot of time in research and development, but it was kind of repurposing something, okay? So my definition of an entrepreneur is someone that takes a risk to create something new or to improve upon something, or takes a risk to find an alternative use for an existing process or product. Does that make sense? So, are we good with that definition? So, this is, I might not a pass or fail, but this is my year, okay?
No. Are you now going to
this is my
define
year.
as social entrepreneur?
Oh, social entrepreneur. Those are the broke guys. All right? Social entrepreneurs. All right. Social entrepreneur, very, very fascinating and very difficult thing to be good at. Okay? Very difficult to be good at. Number of reasons. As a for-profit company, non-profit entities, traditionally are what can be invested in for outcomes that are social. Non-profits, okay? That's what they're created for. And as a for-profit, you're stepping on their toes. There's probably several non-profits that do what you do, right? That have a long history of being in that space, that have been receiving dollars from government, states for years. So you're jumping in saying, I can do it better, faster, quicker, and they're saying, this is really risky. He could be gone tomorrow, right? So social entrepreneur is someone that has a real specific social mission and tries to monetize it and stay afloat. And there's different models coming out now, like B Corps, LC3s, different models where private and public investors can ultimately come together to fund a social outcome or a group of social outcomes. So this is me being social entrepreneurial and being like this really serious stuff here. This is 1 year. This is the beginning of the year. January to December. Okay? And you know what, want to hear something funny is I had people tell me, it's my first time working for folks in 8 years. And I had them challenge, you don't tell us what you do all the time. You don't know, we don't know what you're doing. What are your outcomes? And to a point, it's my own fault because I didn't do a great job at self-promoting. So I went back to the drawing board because I document all the stuff that I do because I like it. So I actually put this together over the last couple days to validate their investment in my social entrepreneurial efforts, okay? So what I'm going to do, and this is all the people and all the lives that I impacted. It's about 2,000 people, okay? And I'm going to start with some of the cooler things that have happened in this. Does anybody know John Hope Bryant from Operation Hope? All right, well, that's him in our incubator. He runs Operation Hope. They are doing about 50,000 members, 50,000 people in programs around financial literacy in the country. But this is one of the proudest moments I have.
Don't wave, just come. I've been here for a while, just come. So,
these are people I mentor.
Amber, a lot of people have pointed to, talked about.
I brought him to be a guest speaker in my hometown.
I want to thank Carmen and James for bringing these two bright lights to my attention. You already know they're going to be stars. You see, they made no room for me in the middle. They just, I'm standing there. Please?
Alright, well that's just one. That was a great moment for them as well as me. You know, they travel from Beaver County to ultimately, that's the mayor of Erie. This right here, I work with, after being disabled, I spent a lot of my time trying to figure out how to help others with disabilities. And my first office was in the Mental Health Association, where I worked with using the field of entrepreneurship to get people with co-occurring disabilities, drug and alcohol, you know, a mental illness. I worked with them to use entrepreneurship to get them re-engaged and reactive in their lives and learning, and to start looking at career paths outside of subsidies, you know. And it's a very tough thing to try to motivate and inspire people. Well, I also got turned into a niche where I started working with people with severe disabilities, okay? I helped a woman to ultimately get these she has cerebral palsy. She wanted to open a photography company, and we had to figure out what was the right blend of technology to get her up and functioning. And let me see if I have a little video of her on here, and that'll be kind of a shame if I don't. But here, ultimately, she basically launched the venture. I did it in partnership with the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. We used equipment from the lending library. I taught her how to become a mobile learner and worker. I've worked with 2 folks with cerebral palsy. This gentleman is a mentor of a program, or excuse me, he's a mentor of mine from Cincinnati. And this is, I run National Entrepreneurship Week for the state, as I mentioned.
I've learned a lot of lessons in the past few years. Everybody else. And this is kind of preparing you for what to expect in the workplace.
That's a cosmetology teacher where I brought in mobile laptops where we're doing business simulations, and I gave away different high-powered hair, you know, blowers to the ones that accumulated the most money within their venture simulation.
We don't have that school rivalry.
This gentleman came into Cincinnati to be a mentor for my people from Erie, and he and I are actually acquiring 2 patents from an older 87-year-old gentleman. You kind of get the gist of what's going on.
Trying to figure out how we can use the box clip.
This guy. He's an inventor. He's the gentleman I'm acquiring his patents.
Across Egypt, different stages of
So there's that woman again. That's the youth entrepreneur. One thing I didn't mention to you is she's the teen entrepreneur of the year for Black Enterprise magazine. Okay, so you know, little things that go a long way in the field of entrepreneurship. I've helped as an advisory board member the American Insight, and we launched the first Freedom of Speech Film Festival last year, and a film from China won. Give you just a quick snapshot. Well, maybe I won't.
This is since Erie, not now.
This is this year.
It would be hard to find a more apt
This is how much
location
activity
for the
I
first
thought
ever Free Speech Film Festival. Across the road from Independence Hall in Philadelphia, at the American Philosophical Society's Benjamin Franklin Hall, the Free Speech Award is being handed out. The winner, Free China, The Courage to Believe.
So, my organization, what I failed to mention is in order to get me to come to this this town, my company that I created to help people live out their dreams is called a Dreams Institute. One thing I didn't mention is I was fortunate enough to close a deal with Cisco Systems, which is like an $87 billion networking company, and I was the first person to bring their Cisco Entrepreneur Institute product to North America, and we had the ability to teach entrepreneurship in 16 different languages. And that's what I thought Dr. Crusoe acquired my company for, because I thought he wanted that contract, but he shelved the technology as soon as I got there, and I had to learn a whole bunch of other tools. This is a training I skipped a little bit here. I'm a founding board member of the charter school, as I mentioned. Here's the training I run down at the Navy Yard. Dr. Crusoe is there in all the screens. We had a Tuskegee Airmen event where we actually brought the Tuskegee Airmen in the planes, and this is one of my clients and his grandson, and it's just a really cute video.
Where is he?
Nice. And we brought the actor Nate Parker in for the event, and we had just a world-class event this year. And there's the plane, and you kind of get the drift of that. And this is a really proud moment. There's Nate Parker right there, and here's my two little folks that I mentor, and here's her doing her thing. So I didn't tell you, it's her business is Amber's Amazing Balloons. And she's going to be selling kits nationwide. And my work with her now is trying to teach her how to make a $1 million business out of her passion.
His camera's nicer than mine.
Cool little penguin. So that you all recognize that guy from the Red Tails movie. So you can imagine, she was loving that, right? Let me see if I can.
Do you have anything on there with the young man from my former student who knew boxing?
Yes, I do. Thank you for asking. Here's the break. I'll play it next. Oh, this is not on better playback. Okay. I'll skip over this one. Doesn't allow embedded playback. Just killing me. Well, sorry about that, Rick. There's the video with the whoa! Spiraling out of control. Alright, here. I don't know how to get us back normal, but I'll
just hit
figure
the
it out.
home button on the right, top right, above the focus.
Above the zoom.
Above the zooms where you were at.
My man. Okay. I don't know why those two videos didn't play, but I was going to show you one of the folks from Villanova that Rick introduced me to. These are all amazing pictures of different events. Here's Dr. Crusoe and a gentleman that I mentor. He's one of the smartest young men that I've ever met right here. He's just an amazing guy. His name's Jamie Scott. And here's an investment meeting that I was launching in Erie at my office. And this really goes to show you the depth of the people I work with. This is what epitomizes, just the work that I do here. I bring all the things that are important to
Here
you.
is the ability for the customer or the end user to take that strap. When they put the clip on, it'll give them easy access to pull it off. All right, and the next thing is when you get done with it, whoever is using it, the end user can hang it up in a particular place. So it's easy access for them to hang it up. And also the clip holds at the very metal part, holds the RFID chip, which is a sensor.
What makes this exciting about this?
Inventory and location of each of the customers' particular items in that.
All right, an 87-year-old guy
The clip has
and
an
his son,
accessible point and also is used more
one
so
of my father's
for
friends. He built my
the
first
end
car.
user, and also is a very viable thing, and it can be also eco-friendly too for that clip.
So these are two
So
veterans.
would you be able to draw it on how the box would work with that marker real quick, with that strap?
and I created this concept called
there, let's just walk it up
launch
there.
shop, where I
You guys
mapped
want
out
to check
every
this out? I
step,
think you wanted that, right?
every step needed for them to get their venture
here's the
intact
box.
and up and running. So I showed you that because this is a very unique scene where an African American engineer is helping an 87-year-old man from the majority. But this is the type of stuff I do, all inclusive, trying to break down traditional barriers of different ethnicities.
Carmen, you weren't able to show the video, but briefly tell the story of that young man, please.
You got it.
The engineer.
Okay. Rick is, I don't know if you guys and gals are aware that he's a master connector, and he always can see how to make matches with people, and kind of, because he takes it, he's a good listener and listens to what people's needs are, and he knows how to apply that knowledge to make meaningful connections. So he knows that I'm running a program that focuses on working with men of color, and he happened to refer me a gentleman, a non-traditional student, I believe he's 41 years old, named Bruce Williams. Turns out, Bruce? Turns out that Bruce happens to be a Cisco engineer. I'm also a Cisco engineer. My company in the past was a Cisco, we're still Cisco certified to this date. So he came to me and he wanted to start, launch his venture. He had been muddling around as an employee, but he wanted to start his own venture. So we were able to help him get everything in place where he started to get his 8A contracting license. And what made him so unique is he was a Cisco CCIE. So he was one of the highest ranking engineers that Cisco has. There's probably 30 of them in the whole world. So just very unique that he fell into my lap and I knew how to sell a lot of stuff for him. So the first 2 weeks of being in my program, he priced out 3,000 parts for a large contract for the Department of Treasury. Did they get the deal? Not determined. But the fact is he was able to prove to another gentleman that's the fastest growing minority business in the area, he was able to prove to him that if we need to turn out major quotes to get major business, you're the right guy. So he's growing in staffing. Now we're working on he's got this major contract with GE. How can he expand his business leveraging other engineers within his network so that he can go after larger projects? So within a month, we hit the road hard. We got super productive, and thanks to Rick's connection. So you'll be seeing a lot more different, anybody here that wants to start a business, that wants to start a nonprofit, that's interested in launching a school, you talk to me. My services are no cost. This is Steve Mariotti that created NEFTY, National Foundation for Teaching Entrepreneurship. I was fortunate enough in November, I got inducted into a national board for the Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education. And this guy right here is the one that makes me look smart. I run education programming. This is my secret weapon. This is Lawrence Husick. He's a partner at Lipton Weinberger Husick. He's exited 9 entities.
He'll be here next week.
Yep, he'll be here next week. He's the lead educator for my programming. So me being in front of people is not usually what I do. I kind of try to play the role Rick does and connect people. And I'm a sales-driven person, so I know that everything's in the numbers. So I'm going to just play this, and that'll be the end of my little rant. But, well, I have one
of our largest sponsors is this gentleman, because he donates his time and his passion. Lawrence Husick. Those who do not know Lawrence, he's an amazing individual. He's an innovator. He's an educator. A philanthropist, I'd say, to some degree. But he's an expert on innovation, okay? He is a professor or lecturer at Johns Hopkins. He teaches master's degrees engineers, innovation process. And he's a lecturer on innovation at the Foreign Policy Research Institute. He's exited about 9 entities, and he's a partner at Lipton Weinberger and Houston.
Sorry for the repetition, but he's going to come on and say some cool stuff.
Education around the field of innovation. And without any further discussion, please welcome Lawrence.
Good morning,
for a
I said
lecture,
that
right?
Because it's my belief that our economic system in this country is structured so that entrepreneurs always win. And if you don't believe it now, you will in the next half hour. Because that's critical to understanding why and how you need to execute on entrepreneurship.
And I'll leave you in mystery of what he's going to talk about because. And one last thing is, I was.
When was that?
This is in November.
It was here.
No, the Navy
Well, I mean,
Yard.
in Villanova.
Yeah, when I wanted you to be on the panel.
Yeah.
This is my mentor, John Hope Bryant. He opened a Hope Center in the new Martin Luther King building down in Atlanta, and I was there as a delegate for the opening ceremony. Here's an event that I had in November with several of my clients at the Enterprise Center. You know these two suspects right here. Rick introduced me to these two folks. This was an event that Rick helped organize. This is the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs. And don't mind this guy's evil eye, but what makes this good, and this is the last photo of the photo trip. This is in December 12th. And this particular woman she works for the Dr. Caruso of Erie. He is Pat Black, one of the founders of Erie Insurance. And they came up to meet with me and to discuss different ways the foundations can collaborate because he's also a venture capitalist. So it was really great for me to know that the gentleman, that's the Dr. Caruso of Erie, Pennsylvania, sent his team to come meet and reconnect with me to kind of discuss some of the work that I'm doing with entrepreneurs on the eastern side of Pennsylvania and the western side of Pennsylvania. So in and of itself, that's me, and please, again, don't mind their eyes. They'd probably be a little upset knowing I showed that. All right? And any questions?
Questions?
Hey, a little bit back, you mentioned STEM learning. What exactly is that?
STEM learning, great question. There's a big push for science, technology, engineering, and math education. The United States is falling behind all the other developing nations. I believe they're 17th or 27th, depends who you ask, in math. And STEM education is really, and a lot of people abuse it these days, but it's really, focusing on science, technology, engineering, and math. A lot of people think it's all in one. Oh, I'm doing STEM education. What exactly are you doing? So the fact is you can do a lot of different things to promote science. You can do a lot of things to promote technology. You can do a lot of things to promote entrepreneurship and a lot of things to do math. So creating structured activities that integrate all of them is something that I try to work with professionals in education to create.
One last question, I'm
Sure.
sorry. Would you say, because I know you mentioned that school and reading and college is a little difficult for you, and I can relate to that. Would you say that's the key to being the successful entrepreneur that you are? Do you think that would have happened otherwise, or you think that?
Well, I think it started I was born with the floating eye, one of those eyeballs that looks sideways. I have a lot of birth defects that you can't see here, I'm missing a pectoral muscle, and it just made my chest grow goofy. So the fact is, I had several setbacks at an early age that I had to fight through. And I went to the all-white school, and then in the summertime I went to the all-black programming. So I was either an N or an H, depending on which crew that I was at. I always was something to someone being biracial. So always having to fight, always having to protect myself, always having to know when there was threats, always know how to sway people to be on my team so I would have the majority and not always being in the minority. So just different things. One of the things that really cemented it was my experience of getting fired while I was ill and realizing that you could be number one in the country but be nobody.
You already have Mr. Bush's business plan. I forwarded it to you this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Nick needs help building his business. He's got a successful business.
Sure.
I just learned tonight that Michelle is a one of those people. Cosmologist, right?
Cosmetologist.
Yeah, one of those. A paint lady.
She gets her hair did.
Sure. Well, yeah. And you saw that to-do thing?
Yes.
Oh, you did? Yes.
Yes, and the most fantastic thing, and Rick, you know, I'm working to support a African American woman that runs a salon. It's called Ryan Foster in Girard Ave, and she was the #1 minority business of the year for the Black MBAs Association this year. She was the best salon of the year in 2011. But what makes her really cool is she's created her own line of all plant-based hair products, and she's actually created the first all-natural hair straightener. No chemicals, all right? No hot combs needed, none of that. And in fact, we're having an event February 23rd at her salon, and you all are my guests, okay? And she has these amazing names for her particular products. And I'm not wearing any, but like I refer to as activator, but like she has some amazing curl stuff, and I can do anything. I can run out like it'd be human out. I'm like, woo! Don't touch it! Don't touch it! But anyway, so I definitely, my wife, she sleeps with a wrap similar to that. I call it like an Erykah Badu head wrap, but she's always got something on. So I definitely sympathize. And you know, if there's any,
I think.
And I love that commercial as well. So, are you selling those things? Are you a reseller?
No, I don't sell them. I refer my clients to go and purchase them, but I give them their first one free so they can test it out to see.
So I can walk out of here with one of them head dresses for free. No, that's my style. No. Anyways, I really appreciate everyone's time, and I'll give you my contact information should you be interested. And I'll start with my email address. It's Carmen, C-A-R-M-E-N, at uif.org. In closing here, I forgot to mention the mission of the Uncommon Individual Foundation is to help people reach their full potential.